There are islands in the world that are so strange, the kind that suddenly appear and then suddenly disappear. It sounds unbelievable, but it really happens. In this video, we will find out about the 15 islands that have experienced this. But before we start, don't forget to like this video. This means a lot to us content creators. Thank you very much, and now let's get started. Number 15, Zalzalako in Pakistan. On the morning of September 24, 2013, a strong earthquake struck Balochistan. It reached a magnitude of 7.7. Many people died. More than 800 in many places were destroyed. But that wasn't the only thing that happened. In the sea near Gwadar, there was a sudden change underwater. For many years, mud containing methane gas had been accumulating. Because of the earthquake, it suddenly rose up. Just a few hours after the earthquake, an island appeared. The fishermen were the first to see it. An island shaped like an oval, about 20 meters high and 150 meters long, gray in color, made of mud and rocks. They called it Zalzalako, which means mountain from the earthquake. NASA even captured it in satellite images. The new land that rose from the sea was clearly visible. According to scientists, it's a mud volcano. It didn't take long before it became a tourist spot. People even paid just to see it up close. But despite this, experts already knew it wouldn't last long. In just 1 month, it sank by 3 meters. By 2016, it was almost impossible to see it when the water was high. And by 2019, only traces of it could be seen under the sea. In other words, it formed within a few hours and disappeared within a few years. Number 14, Sholan Island in the Red Sea, Yemen. The area has been quiet for a long time when it comes to volcanic activity, so people didn't expect anything to happen. This place is part of the Zubair archipelago. It is located between the African and Arabian tectonic plates that are slowly drifting apart. But in December 2011, something unusual happened. Fishermen noticed that the sea seemed to be boiling. Smoke was rising and rocks were being thrown up. What was happening was that magma was rising from beneath the ground. When it reaches the water, it explodes. This happens repeatedly, and with each explosion, rocks accumulate on the surface. In less than a month, by January 2012, the island was already formed. It was over 500 meters wide and 700 meters long. It was called Sholan Island. It was named after one of the first fishermen who saw it. According to scientists from King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, the eruption came from a large crack underground that was over 10 kilometers long. The island you see is just a small part of something much bigger happening underground. But it didn't stay the same. Within 2 years, its size decreased by 30% because of the waves. Even now, the sea is still gradually eroding it. The island is still there, but it's smaller now. It's a reminder that the land beneath the sea is alive and moving. Number 13, Fukutoku, Okinawa. On August 13, 2021 at around 6 in the morning, an underwater volcano erupted. It is located about 25 meters underwater and about 60 kilometers from Iwo Jima. This is not the first time this volcano has erupted. It has created small islands many times before, but they disappeared quickly. But this time, something different happened. In just a few hours, Japan's satellite saw a massive plume of smoke that reached up to 19 kilometers high. It reached above the atmosphere and even affected flights over the Pacific. On the surface of the water, something unusual formed. A large cluster of rocks called pumice. It's light and has air inside, so it floats. Within 2 days, it spread up to 100 kilometers and reached 13 kilometers in width. A new island appeared. It measures over 1 kilometer and is shaped like a horseshoe. You can still see the hot rocks, and the water around it is yellowish. This is one of the largest volcanic eruptions in Japan in modern times. But it didn't end there. The floating rocks traveled across the sea. Within a few months, it reached the Ryukyu Islands. That's more than 1,300 kilometers away. Because of this, the ports were affected. Boats got stranded and fishing stopped. The cleanup cost reached 1.6 billion yen, and that's not all. The rocks even reached Vietnam and Thailand. This means that a single underwater eruption created an island, and it sent rocks to different countries, and by the end of 2021, the island had completely disappeared. Number 12, Niijima in Japan. On October 21, 2023, an underwater volcano erupted near Iwo Jima. This place is about 1,200 kilometers from Tokyo. At first, not many people noticed, because this kind of activity is normal in the area. It's part of the Ring of Fire. It's a zone where earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are common. On October 30, around noon, the eruption became stronger. Rocks were thrown more than 50 meters high. Gradually, an island began to form. At first glance, it was still small, about 100 meters in size. It was surrounded by water of a different color, and there was still smoke. It was called Niijima, which means new island. This was captured by satellite, this one by NASA, on November 3, and again by the European Space Agency on November 27. In just a few weeks, it grew from 100 meters to as much as 500 meters. According to researchers from the University of Tokyo, this is similar to an eruption in 2022 in the same area, and Iwo Jima itself is also gradually growing over time. But the question is, will it last? If the rock is solid, there's a chance it will remain. If it's just soft and made of ash, it will disappear quickly. In the drone footage, you can see that the ground is mixed. There are hard parts and there are soft parts that are gradually being eroded by the waves. By early 2024, it started to shrink. Number 11, Home Reef in Tonga. There are volcanoes that create islands, but those islands also disappear quickly. But in Home Reef, the island keeps forming again and again. It already had an island in 1984 and 2006, but both disappeared. On September 10, 2022, NASA noticed a change in the color of the water, a sign of an eruption. In just a few days, a new island appeared. By October, it had reached over 24 acres in size. This is a place that repeatedly creates islands, and they also repeatedly disappear. According to the study by the Geological Services of Tonga, the island rose to over 50 feet above the sea. They also noticed that dangerous gas was coming out, so they issued a warning to ships not to come near. What makes this eruption different is what came out of the volcano. Based on information from TerraSAR-X, the island is formed around solid lava. That's why it's not easily destroyed by waves compared to soft ash. When compared to other islands, it was noticed that Home Reef eroded 13 times more slowly than an island in 2019. This means the island's longevity depends on what comes out of the volcano. In addition, there was another eruption from September to November 2023. The size of the island increased even more, and until 2025, it is still there and continues to grow every time there is an eruption. In December 2014, a volcano in Tonga became active. It erupted and released ash that reached up to 9 kilometers high. Because of this, flights in the South Pacific were affected. After the eruption stopped in January 2015, something new was left behind. Between the two islands, Hungatonga and Hungahapai, a new land was formed. It measures over 1.9 kilometers and has a height of 120 meters. At first, scientists thought it would disappear quickly. Usually, this kind of island disappears within a year. But despite this, something different happened. It didn't disappear right away. The ground gradually hardened because of the heat inside, making it stronger. This is the reason why it lasted longer. In 2017, NASA scientists said it could last from 6 to 30 years. They monitored it monthly using satellites. There's another reason why NASA is interested. The appearance of the island resembles structures seen on Mars. This means it could help us understand what happened on Mars in the past. When the researchers visited in 2018 and 2019, they saw something unusual. Instead of just ash, thick mud was coming out from inside the volcano, and plants had also started to grow around it. An island that was expected to disappear quickly, slowly turning into a place full of life. The island lasted for 7 years, but on January 15, 2022, the same volcano that created it also destroyed it. This became the most powerful eruption of the 21st century. Its strength was estimated to be equivalent to more than 100 Hiroshima bombs. The shockwave circled the entire world twice, and it caused a tsunami in the Pacific. And the island completely disappeared as well. There was nothing left for the scientists to return to for their research. And 7 years of study disappeared in just one afternoon. Number 9, Boguslav Island in the Bering Sea. There is an island that seems like it can't decide what it wants to look like. This is Boguslav Island. It first appeared in 1796, and since then, it has kept changing over and over. New land emerges, some disappears, and some forms again. Its name comes from the word Boguslav, which means theologian. It was named that way because it appeared on May 18, coinciding with a religious event. For many years, eruptions happen one after another. With each eruption, a new part of the island forms, and some parts also disappear. A part of the island called Castle Rock dates back to the first eruption in 1796. And there's another part that was formed in 1992. This island seems to be repeatedly built and destroyed. So when explorers arrived in the past, their maps were different because the island changed with every visit. On December 20-20, 2016, one of the island's strongest eruptions began. Pilots noticed it and immediately reported it. In just 9 months, more than 70 eruptions happened. There was no monitoring station in the area. So the Alaska Volcano Observatory monitored it using satellites and sensors. The ash from the eruption reached up to 10 kilometers high. Air traffic in the North Pacific was affected, and the ash even reached a community 100 kilometers away. There was also a cloud of sulfur gas that reached as far as Nebraska, and by March 2017, the island had grown 3 times its original size. From 71 acres, it became 242 acres. After the series of eruptions, everything suddenly became quiet. Then the sea came in and gradually reclaimed the island. Most of the land is made up of soft ash and debris. That's why it's easily washed away by the waves. But since 2017, Boguslav Island has remained quiet. The wildlife has also returned. The appearance of the island changed again, but it's clear that it's not over yet.
Number 8, Legacies.
This is different from everything else. This isn't the story of an island. It's the story of a place that's repeatedly trying to become an island. Legacies is a seamount, which means it's a mountain under the sea. When it's calm, it's only about 10 meters below the surface. But when it erupts, it rises and becomes an island. Its activity has been recorded since that year. An island appeared and then disappeared as well. This happened again in 1851, 1858, 1878, and 1886. Each time, the land rises and then sinks again. In 1967, sailors already knew about this place. For them, it was a place where an island would appear and disappear. During that eruption, an island was formed. It was about 800 meters long and 15 meters high. But within just 6 weeks, it disappeared again. In 1979, there was another eruption. There were floating rocks that even reached Fiji. A new island formed again, and it was named Legacies. There was even a ceremony for it. But just like before, it disappeared again after a few months. But in 1995, something changed. Instead of ash, harder rocks formed. So this time, the island lasted. It lasted for 25 years. Scientists even used it for research. But in 2019, it was destroyed as well. A new island formed, but it also disappeared within 2 months. Now it's underwater again, less than 10 meters deep. In total, it has created no less than 6 islands since the 18th century, and all of those were also taken by the sea. The magma coming out of the volcano has been almost the same for many years. The area is still active, and it's likely that a new island will appear again. The only question now is how long it will last before disappearing.
Number 7, Kapilinyo Sapo.
In September 1957, something unusual happened in the sea near the tip of Fial Island in the Azores. Fishermen noticed that the water near the Capelinos lighthouse seemed to be boiling. There was smoke, ash, and explosions coming from under the sea. By September, the eruption continued non-stop. There were explosions that threw rocks and ash up to 1 kilometer high. According to scientists, this was one of the first underwater eruptions, observed from start to finish. Within 2 weeks, a small island had formed. The locals called it Iljanova. It measured over 600 meters in length and 30 meters in height. And by October, it grew even taller, reaching up to 100 meters in height. 3 journalists went there to be the first. They managed to plant the flag of Portugal and left immediately, but after just 20 hours, the island disappeared. The volcano wasn't done yet. In November 1957, there was another eruption, and this time, the new land connected directly to Feel Island. A new piece of land gradually formed. It was like an extension of the island. For 13 months, eruptions and lava flows happened repeatedly. There were times when it was quiet. There were times when the eruptions were strong. On May 12, 1958, there were 450 earthquakes in just a few hours. People were scared. They thought the island would be completely destroyed. No one died from the eruption itself, but it had a big impact on the people. More than 2,000 people were evacuated, and the Capelinos lighthouse was buried in ash up to the first floor. Because of this, the United States Congress passed a law in 1958 to help those affected. One of the supporters of this was John F. Kennedy. About 1,500 people moved to America. When the eruption ended in October 1958, the island grew by about 2.5 square kilometers. The new part of the land is still there until now, and the lighthouse is still standing, but it's no longer at the edge of the sea. Now you can still climb it and see the part of the land that wasn't there before. Number 6, Nishinoshima in Japan. In 1973, there was an eruption, and the island grew bigger. By 1975, the new land and the old island had merged. By 1976, the eruption stopped again, and for 40 years, it remained small and quiet, a little island that almost no one noticed, until something happened again. In November 2013, a plane from the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force spotted smoke coming from the sea near Nishinoshima. It was only about 300 meters away from the island. That means something was erupting again under the sea. Just a few days later, a new island had formed. Within a few weeks, it connected to the old island. This was when the rapid growth of the island began. The lava flowed in different directions. It was like the shore was being slowly pushed outward. By late 2015, it was already 12 times bigger than before. From just 700 meters, it grew to almost 2 kilometers wide. And there was a central part that reached over 140 meters high. But it still didn't stop. There were even more eruptions in 2017 and 2018. And it became even stronger from 2019 to 2020. During that time, the magma was stronger and came from deeper parts of the earth. It released ash that reached up to 8 kilometers high. By 2020, the island had grown to 4 square kilometers in size. Birds also started to live here, such as brown boobies and crested terns. But every time there's a new eruption, they disappear again. According to Japanese volcanologists, there's still a large amount of magma underneath it. That's why it can keep growing over the years. Number 5, Surtsey in Iceland. Many people know Surtsey. It's an island that was formed in November 1963. But there's another story that's not as well known. There's a part under the sea called Surtla. It's like the sibling of Surtsey. While Surtsey was forming, there was another eruption about 2.5 kilometers from it. An underwater formation was gradually taking shape, and it reached a height of 100 meters. The scientists thought it would also reach above the water, but it didn't. The eruption stopped on January 6, 1964. Just 9 days later, around the same time, 2 more small islands formed near Surtsey. These were Surtlingur and Jolnir. They emerged above the water in 1965 and 1966. But within just a few weeks, they also disappeared. Because not all newly formed land becomes a permanent island. The sea is the same, and so is the process. But the results are different. Surtsey lasted longer because the eruption lasted longer, and more lava hardened on the surface. So it served as protection against the strong waves of the North Atlantic. But the others that formed, like Surtla, Surtlingur, and Jolnir, were not as fortunate. They disappeared quickly. This means it's normal for new islands to disappear. Only a few last long. Number 4, Myojincho in Japan. On September 17, 1952, some fishermen saw something unusual in the sea, about 400 kilometers from Tokyo. Something was exploding underwater. In just a few days, a small island appeared. It was about 150 meters long and 100 meters wide. But it disappeared quickly as well. On September 23, there was a powerful explosion that destroyed the island. There was even a 2-meter tsunami. A research ship called Keiomaru No. 5 was sent to study the area. When they arrived, the island was gone, but they continued their research anyway. On September 24, around noon, the volcano suddenly erupted again. It happened directly beneath the ship. Rocks and debris were thrown upward. They hit the ship. It was immediately damaged and sank. No one survived. Everyone on board died. This is one of the worst tragedies in the history of marine research in Japan. The force of the explosion even reached Hawaii. The eruption continued until 1953. The island kept forming repeatedly, and it kept getting destroyed again and again. Because of this, the way the sea was monitored changed. Scientists became more cautious. And until now, the volcano is still active. But one thing is certain. No one goes directly above it anymore. Number 3, Ferdinandia in the Mediterranean Sea. It's only about 30 kilometers away from Sicily. Under the sea, there's a volcano called Empedocles. When it's calm, it's only about 6 to 9 meters below the water. That's why it's dangerous for ships. This isn't the first time it appeared. It was already seen in the past. During the First Punic War, and again in 1831, 1846, and 1863. But the most famous event happened in July 1831. It started with an earthquake. People on the southern coast of Sicily felt the shaking for several weeks. By July 4, smoke was coming out of the sea. In just a few days, an island had formed. By August, it reached 65 meters in height and almost 5 kilometers in circumference. There were also 2 small lakes on top of it. This is where everything became complicated. Ships from different countries immediately went there. Each one wanted to claim the island. Britain was the first to arrive. Captain Humphrey Senhouse of HMS Melville was the one who planted the flag and named it Graham Island. But they weren't the only ones. The Kingdom of the Two Sicilies also sent a ship and named it Ferdinandia. France followed next. They called it Julia, and even Spain showed interest as well. On December 17, 1831, less than 6 months after it appeared, the island was gone. It completely sank. In 1987, there was even an American pilot who made a mistake and thought it was a submarine and bombed it. In 2000, there were divers from Italy who placed a plaque under the sea claiming that it belonged to Sicily. But after just a few months, it disappeared as well. This means countries argued over the island, but it didn't last long enough to be of use. Number 1, Anak Krakatau in Indonesia. In August 1883, Krakatoa erupted between Java and Sumatra. This was one of the most powerful eruptions in history. It was heard up to 5,000 kilometers away. The pressure wave circled the world 4 times. The resulting tsunami killed more than 36,000 people. When the ash cleared, almost nothing was left of the island. A huge hole had formed in the middle, which filled with water. For 44 years, there was no island there. But it didn't end there. On December 29, 1927, fishermen noticed something again. There was smoke and bubbles in the water. Eventually, a small island appeared, but it disappeared again. This kept happening over and over until August 11, 1930. This time, the lava came out faster than the sea could destroy it. That's why a new island was formed. It was called Anak Krakatau. It means child of Krakatoa, and since then it has continued to grow. For many years, it has risen by about 7 to 9 meters each year. By late 2018, it reached over 400 meters in height. But on December 22, 2018, something serious happened. A large part of the volcano collapsed. About 93 million cubic meters of rock fell into the sea. This caused a tsunami that reached 5 meters in height. 437 people died, and thousands more were injured. After this, the height of the island dropped to almost 100 meters, but it didn't stop there. It immediately started to form again. By the early 2020s, it was growing again. This shows that the world continues to change.